So I just finished watching Michael Jackson, An American Tragedy, and it ended up being a really interesting companion piece to the new Michael Jackson biopic. Um, my kids recently saw the Michael Jackson movie and they really enjoyed it. So I asked them, did they talk about all the controversies surrounding his career? And they basically said, what controversies? That's what made me want to watch this documentary where the biopic focuses on Jackson's rise to superstardom. This documentary spends most of its time examining the allegations that overshadowed him in the final decades of his life. Its central argument is that Michael Jackson was an extraordinarily talented musician who was also a deeply troubled man whose childhood profoundly shaped his adult life. The documentary spends quite a bit of time on his upbringing with the Jackson Five and the abuse he reportedly suffered from his father, Joe Jackson. That's been discussed by Michael himself and by several members of the Jackson family over the years. But the film is careful to point out something important. A traumatic childhood may help explain someone's behavior, it doesn't excuse it. The documentary then moves into the allegations of child sexual abuse that began in the early 1990s. The 1993 allegations ended in a civil settlement before any criminal trial took place. Jackson consistently denied wrongdoing, and the settlement did not include an admission of guilt. Then, in 2005, he faced a criminal trial on multiple charges involving another accuser and was acquitted on all counts. The documentary argues, however, that acquittal is not the same thing as proving innocence, and it presents the various allegations together to make the case that there was a consistent pattern of behavior over many years. Whether viewers ultimately agree with that conclusion is, of course, up to them. One section that really stood out to me focuses on Jackson's public image. For years, he cultivated this persona of being an innocent, childlike genius who never really had the chance to grow up. That image made many people interpret his increasingly unusual behavior as eccentric rather than alarming. The documentary also revisits the famous Living with Michael Jackson television special by British journalist Martin Bashir. Watching those clips today is honestly uncomfortable. Jackson openly says that he sees nothing wrong with children sleeping in his bed. At the time, many people defended those comments as evidence of his innocence or emotional immaturity. Looking back, especially after later allegations, those interviews are viewed very differently by many people. The film also examines Jackson's relationships with the adults around him. It argues that as his fame grew, very few people were willing or able to tell him no, whether it was his lifestyle, his spending, or the dramatic changes to his appearance through multiple cosmetic surgeries. The documentary suggests he had become surrounded by people whose livelihoods depended on keeping him happy. That's a situation that rarely ends well for anyone. One thing the documentary doesn't deny, and frankly couldn't, is Michael Jackson's impact on music. Albums like Thriller, Bad, and Off the Wall changed pop music forever. His influence on music videos, live performances, choreography, and modern pop stars is almost impossible to overstate. In fact, Thriller remains the best-selling album in history according to most industry estimates. The uncomfortable question the documentary leaves you with is whether it's possible to separate extraordinary artistic achievement from deeply disturbing allegations about the artist? That's a question every viewer has to answer for themselves. Personally, I thought that this was a well made documentary. It's serious, well structured, and it provides a useful overview of the allegations and the media environment surrounding them. Even if you followed the Michael Jackson story for years, seeing everything presented in chronological order gives you a different perspective on how public opinion shifted over time. Whether you ultimately agree with all of its conclusions or not, it's definitely worth watching if you're interested in one of the most complicated and controversial figures in modern popular culture. Thanks for watching, and if you like what I do, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. This will help me on my mission to become the most prolific reviewer of all time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.